Inspire us. Our first presenters are from United World College, here to talk to us about climate change. Please give Hannah Friedman and Sophia Sennett a warm welcome.
Hi, my name is Hannah Friedman, and I'm from Baltimore, Maryland.
And my name is Sophia Sennett, and I'm originally from Washington State. And I think we're going to wait just a little bit before this prezi comes up.
All right.
Introduce myself.
So my name is Hannah Friedman, and I'm from Baltimore, Maryland.
And my name is Sophia Sennett, and I'm originally from Washington State.
And we're here today to talk about international global climate change awareness and action, and how youth can get involved. Today is International Children's Day, as we just saw, and it's really important that children really get involved, and youth of all ages get involved and really embrace, because we are the next generation of youth leaders.
Right, so like I said, I'm from Washington State originally, and I just moved here to New Mexico a year ago. And what I found really surprising was the droughts that the summer brought. And I was told that this was not a common thing in New Mexico. And in fact, this year we experienced the worst droughts in New Mexico history. It's quite interesting statistics. This summer, the Jemez Mountains experienced the worst forest fires in the complete history of the area. And also, these indications of climate change are having a big effect on our neighboring state of Texas, where due to climate change and these droughts, there's been a $5.2 billion agricultural agricultural deficit that has had huge impacts in the region. And I was just kind of shocked about this, being new to the area. But like our introductory speaker said, we're from United World College, and we have students there from 84 different countries. And what I found interesting about the situation in New Mexico was that it was very similar actually to kind of changes, environmental changes going on in Sicily actually. So, next slide. So we're going to hear from a variety of different students from the school talk about environmental issues in their parts of the world and what young people are doing about it. And so the first YouTube video is from Adriana.
So I'm Adriana, I'm from Italy, which is in Europe, and particularly I'm from an island that is at the end of the peninsula. It's called Sicily. And right now in Sicily, the biggest environmental problem is for sure the droughts that we're experimenting, but moreover the desertification, which is not necessarily due to the droughts. Sicily has a history of droughts. We're really used to them, because our climate, even though we're an island, so we're surrounded by the sea, it doesn't rain a lot, just like here in New Mexico. It doesn't rain a lot, so we experiment droughts during summer, and our temperatures are really high. But due to the greenhouse effect and to the temperatures that are rising every day, in my island we are actually experimenting the desertification. We have our vegetation is dying, especially on the coasts that face towards Africa, and we've been encountering lots of problems because the droughts are getting worse, and we can't manage them anymore. We can't deal with them.
Okay, so now we're going to move across the world over to Hong Kong, where Inka, second year at United World College, is going to talk about pollution in her city.
So I'm Inka from Hong Kong. Hong Kong is geographically, it's part of China, and it's on the southeast of China around there. It's a very, very small city, but it holds a huge population. I think right now it's like 7 million, sorry, correction. Still a lot of people for such a tiny place. But I think the biggest environmental problem in Hong Kong would be pollution, that's for sure, because as I said, it's such a small city, so many people, and we have very advanced technology. So there's a lot of cars, a lot of factories, just a lot of people creating a lot of waste every day. And the thing with people in Hong Kong, I think, is just we don't put as much focus on the environment as we do over here in the States. So it's definitely a big concern. And Hong Kong has been said to be one of the cities with the biggest pollution problem in the world. So.
Okay, and our next speaker is going to be from Colombia.
Hi, I'm Nicholas from Colombia. Right now, I think the most pressing environmental issues that are going on in my country have to deal a lot with deforestation, because for a really long time we've had an armed conflict in the jungles, which actually kept them virtually intact because no one wanted to go in them and no logging companies went in. But now that there has actually been a reduction of the armed violence, a lot of trees have been cut down to make way for farming and agriculture, especially cattle agriculture. So that's a lot of greenhouse gases that have been emitted because of that. And so actually currently right now there are several youth groups that are working in specific schools, and instead of taking a class trip, they usually used to go to Europe, they're actually going to the rainforests now in Brazil, Peru, and Colombia, and they're seeing how they can stop so many logging companies from working in the jungle, and they're actually working with the indigenous populations that have been displaced from the jungle, because a lot of them had to move into the cities, which increases homelessness and things. But actually, they've been very successful, and they've been working really hard. We've been seeing a lot of gains from them.
Great. And so the next video is, it kind of is about the effects of what Inka was talking about in terms of pollution in Hong Kong. The effects are being seen maybe most dramatically in the Maldives, where last speaker is from. It's an island nation, as you can see off the coast of India, that is projected to be completely underwater in the next kind of few decades. So.
Was until global warming. Anyhow, global warming was a relatively new term for the people in Maldives, but we became aware of it somewhere in the late 80s, early 90s. And people have done a good job of educating themselves about global warming and everything. And everyday life has something to do with sea level rise. I mean, every day you go on the internet and you look at the newspaper, or if you're at home, unlike me, when the newspaper gets delivered to your house, you look through it, and there's always a story about some island having a flash flood, or a huge part of the beach being eroded, or something like that. And the decisive year, or the remarkable year, is 2004 after tsunami, when everything was destroyed, and the water basin was destroyed. I mean, the water basin started being affected a long time back, but after 2004, basically there was no way we can drink well water because it was so saline.
Okay, so now that you've heard from a variety of students from a variety of places, what is going on now is international negotiations, because even though all of the people talking on this presentation talked about something different, it's all the effects of global climate change, and it all needs, therefore, a collaborative and international solution.
So this collaborative and international solution is put forward by the United Nations, and they had a conference in 1992, which was informally called the Earth Summit, which was the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development. And the goal of this conference was to stabilize greenhouse gas emissions at a level that will prevent dangerous anthropogenic interference with the climate system. And there was the voluntary goal set of the Kyoto Protocol, which is a goal for developed countries to reduce emissions to 1990 levels by 2012. And it's a binding agreement, but because the United Nations is sort of an aggregation of a bunch of different countries, they have no real military or force to back up any agreements that are made. So just to sort of explain the structure of the UN here, there are sort of two main bodies. There's the subsidiary body for scientific and technical advice, which promotes the development of sort of eco-friendly technology, and their main sort of informant is the IPCC, which is the sort of like the essential scientific input on climate change, and it's widely recognized as the most credible source on climate change data. The other body is the SBI, which meets to review financial and administrative issues. And then the Secretariat is sort of in charge of the whole thing and puts together the official documents and makes sure that things happen. So the upcoming conference is Rio Plus 20, which will be held this summer, 20 years after the first Earth Summit that will be held in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. So what is Rio Plus 20? It's essentially the conference, it's like an update conference from the one 20 years ago. And so we will see the results of the Kyoto Protocol. We will we'll present like relevant research and just really try to get all of the different countries together to try and come up with a binding agreement on reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So FIA and I will be attending this conference as US youth delegates this summer, and we are attending as part of the Sustain Us delegation. Sustain Us is one of the biggest environmental youth delegations that takes place in this country. And they work with everything from grassroots organizing to working on environmental issues at local levels to sending delegates to these huge international conferences. And all of the delegates that they send are youth. People from all different ages, pretty much 18 to like 25, because it's really important that youth are involved in making these decisions. And youth activism in general is important. The world today is being run by adults, and they're making decisions that will affect us and the world that we will soon be in charge of. We're the future leaders, and we should have a part in making some of these decisions. Another reason why kids are really, really, really great activists is because we have absolutely limitless energies. I once heard someone refer to kids as the best renewable resource that our country has. And we have good ideas, we're creative, and we have just a ton of energy that we can give to this movement. Additionally, we haven't been activists before, so we haven't sort of been like burnt out, and we haven't fallen into sort of pathways that have been like tried and not worked. We have fresh ideas. Additionally, teenagers are kind of known to question authority, which in some cases is not bad, but honestly, where would we be if people didn't question things? We have to sort of reevaluate the position that we're in, and I think that kids, teenagers, and youth are in the best position to do so. So Bill McKibben is one of Bill McKibben is one of our country's sort of foremost environmentalists here. He is a great environmental author and runs a really cool sort of like activism website that's international that gets people involved. And he came to speak at our school last week, and Fia and I got the pleasure to show him around, and we sort of recorded this video on his opinions on what youth should do, specifically in terms of Rio.
20, people who weren't around 20 years ago at the first Rio conference need to be part of this one. And this time, they actually need to insist that the people who are running the show commit to doing real things. 20 years ago, there was a lot of good words and lofty rhetoric, and next to nothing has happened in the intervening 20 years. So far be it from me ever to tell young people to be cynical. I don't want that. But don't fall for easy answers. Say, what specifically is it that we're going to be doing? Because we actually are running out of 20-year cycles to waste. And if we get to Rio plus 40, and we haven't done much more than we have the last 20, then it's not going to be any kind of celebration. It's mostly going to be a big, depressing kind of wake, Don't let that happen. Let's show the kind of movement building we can do, and let's don't for a minute just sort of take for granted that our leaders are somehow going to do this by themselves. We're going to have to push them to make it happen.
So Mr. McKibben really brings home the point that this conference is really, really, really important. And if things are still not happening at this conference, if no binding agreement is reached, then we're going to be in a little bit of trouble. So I am of the firm belief that every single person in this room can do something to help and can be a very strong activist in your own community, in your state, and in our country, and in the world. So I've kind of sort of figured out that there's a mantra that people can follow. And so you have to learn about the issues, you have to do your research, you have to figure out why this is so important so that you can bring your own story in and really share with people that this is important. You then have to live it, where you really make a difference in your own life and how you approach life and sort of really, really living the things that you're talking about. And then you can speak it. You can talk to your school, you can talk to your community, you can talk to your state representatives, you can talk to our president. It's actually really important to talk to our president because it's still not entirely sure that President Obama will even come to Rio. And if Obama doesn't come, then the United States really can't make much of a difference and can't contribute to this binding agreement, which wouldn't make much sense because we are one of the biggest producers of greenhouse gases in the world.
Right, and because of that, we as members of the United States have a big responsibility to uphold because of our, well, we have the largest CO2 in the world per capita. And just to tie back to the videos, we have the responsibility because the impacts of our waste, of our pollution, are affecting Exxon, who is from the Maldives that we just saw in the video. We are a large contributor to his problem in his local community. And it's just very interesting because the Maldives are very small. It's a very small island chain, and they only have a GDP of about 1.48 billion, which is, if you think back to what I said earlier, it's only a small part of the 5.2 billion of the agricultural losses that have been in Texas lately. So I think we all need to keep this in mind while we look forward to Rio +20, which is happening this summer.
Yeah, so specific actions that everyone in this room can take to sort of get involved in Rio and get involved with the environmental movement in general are things like, so 350.org is a really great resource. It's a website that is run by Bill McKibben, the man we just heard speak, and it just gets everyone involved in huge environmental actions that take place locally, but they are all sort of planned out to happen at the same time so that it's a global effort taking place. Additionally, you can get involved in just local organizations like the Sierra Club and just different environmental agencies that are here and in the state and in your communities. So if we want this beautiful world to be here for our children and our grandchildren and people around the world who we don't even know and their children, then we really need to be making a difference. And this difference needs to happen at Rio +20 this summer. Thank you.
Thank you.